Now I'm cooking up a proper video at the moment, but I wanted to treat you guys to a bit of a quickie because I wanted to talk about something which is jet engines and specifically how they are getting bigger over time. Even for a sort of similarly sized airplane, we've gone from a jet engine that looks like this to one that looks like this. Now, I'm not the first person on here to cover this. There are already some good videos talking about the size of jet engines and why they're getting bigger. A lot of the videos that do talk about this look at everything going on inside a jet engine, what that means, how a jet engine does what it does. And while that's very interesting, I think it's even more fascinating that you can come to this conclusion while knowing absolutely nothing about jet engines and having to learn nothing about jet engines. So what we're going to do in this video is look at a jet engine as a magic box. Air comes in at some speed and it leaves more quickly, and that pushes the plane. That's it. We don't have to care about all this silliness going on here. So let's talk about efficiency. Efficiency is just the useful energy that we get out for the amount of energy that we put in. And it's always going to be less energy out than we put in because can't have shit. Can't have shit. In the simple case of a light bulb, we've got a little Pixar situation going on here. The useful energy that we put in is of course electricity, and the useful energy we get out is light, and everything else is wasted as heat. And the more efficient that our light bulb is, the less electricity we have to pay to get the same amount of light out. And we want to do the same thing in a jet engine. We want to put as little energy in to get the most energy possible out. So if we're looking at a jet engine as a magic box where air comes in slowly and leaves quickly, what is the energy in and what is the energy out? So the energy we put in is just the kinetic energy that we give to the air. If we imagine a plane flying at speed v, I know it's sounding a little algebra, but just trust me, we're cool, we're good, just stay with me. We can take a look at the jet. Now, air comes into the jet at speed v if we're flying along with it, right? And it leaves the jet at this faster speed, what we'll call vj or vjet. So that's the speed of the air as it leaves the jet. So the kinetic energy that we give to the air is going to be the difference between the energy that it has when it comes into the jet and the energy that it has when it leaves the jet. That's how much energy we give it, right? So what is that? Well, the kinetic energy for a certain amount of mass is just v squared. So the kinetic energy that comes into the jet is v squared, and that leaves the jet is vj squared. So we can say that the energy we give it is just the difference between those two values. So what we can do is make a very simple plot to kind of help us visualize this. So on the y-axis, we have how much energy we're putting in, and on the x-axis, we have how quickly the air is leaving the jet. So that's this speed here at the back. Now what we can see is if we keep the speed of the plane itself, that is v, the same, then the amount of energy that we put in, it just increases with the speed that the air is leaving the jet. So as the jet pushes out air faster and faster, the amount of energy that we have to put in increases with v squared. Okay, that's great, but for efficiency, we have to know not just how much energy we're having to put in, but how much useful energy we're getting out. So what is the useful energy that we get from our jet engine? Well, in this case, it's just the momentum that we're giving to the plane itself, right? That's what we want to do, is we want to push the plane as much as possible using as little energy as possible. So how much are we pushing the plane? Well, that's just from momentum. And for a certain amount of mass, the momentum is just the change in velocity. So it's the faster speed the air leaves the jet minus the speed that it's coming in the jet. That's how much air is speeding up inside the jet, right? The difference between going in and going out. So that is the momentum that our jet gives to the plane. And then to work out the power, we just times that by the speed of the plane. So that's the power out. And we can plot this on the same graph. Again, as we increase the speed of the air leaving the jet, what we can see is that the amount of power that we get out increases, but it doesn't look the same as the power in. This is because it's linear, it's just a straight line, whereas the power that we have to put in increases with vjet squared. So the difference becomes bigger and bigger as the air leaving our jet gets faster and faster. So you might have already spotted the conclusion that we're going to draw from this, right? We want to use as much of the energy that we put in to get useful output. That means we want these lines to be as close together as possible. Well, where are they closest together? It's right down the bottom here, where the air leaving the jet is at its absolute slowest. So to get the most efficient engine, we want air leaving the jet just slightly faster than the speed that the plane is going. Okay, that's great, but if the air's leaving really slowly, it's going to have almost no push. So how do we get around this? Well, instead of using a little bit of air going really quickly, what we do is we have our slow air, but we have more of it. to get this big mass of air moving slowly instead of a little bit moving quickly, what they do is they whack what we call a fan, which is basically a great big propeller on the front of the engine. This means we need a much bigger engine to accommodate this big fan, even though the jet bit of the jet engine is quite small in the middle. And that's it. That's the whole explanation. You can turn off the video now. You can go have lunch, enjoy yourself, make a cup of tea. But shout out my audience retention heroes. If you're still here, there's a couple questions you might be wondering. Why don't we just make them bigger and bigger then, if bigger is better? Because we can move all this air really slowly. And that's a good question, and there are sort of three main limits for this. First thing is, if we have a big engine, of course that creates a load of drag. You've just got a big circle that's slamming into fast air. That's gonna slow you down like a parachute or any other big surface would. The second reason is a boring reason. It's just because of something we call ground clearance, which just means as the plane is taxiing around in an airport, we have to keep a minimum amount of clearance between the bottom of the engine and the tarmac. And this is one of the big problems with the 737 MAX, that and the, falling from the sky. And the third reason I think is a more interesting one, where if we have these huge fans going really quickly, we don't need we don't need graphics. What happens is some of those fan tips, as they go really quickly, start to go supersonic, which is one of the worst things to happen at a tip. And all of these we can follow up on and explain a bit more about. But this was the video I wanted to make. I thought it was just interesting to talk about because we can come at it from this sort of other angle of just pure physics, not having to know how a plane engine works. Anyway, I'm gonna do a proper video. I had to get this one out. It was, it was gagging for it. I'll see you in a bit. Love you, bye.